So, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
And second that motion?
All in favor? The next meeting of the Select Board will be August 27th at 5:30 in the West Bath Town Office, right here, where we are now. Was that a comment or just moving around?
No, I was just getting situated.
Under Selectmen's comments and announcements, nomination papers are available for one person on the Select Board and two for School Board. And those can be picked up during office hours from the Town Clerk. Are there citizens' comments? Yes, sir.
You want to go first? I can go first. It was Frank Bartholomew, 515 Foster's Point Road. Been in contact with Adam for the past couple of weeks and sending emails back and forth with Adam into the DMR, specifically about the trawler that goes up and down the New Meadows. There are two issues that I have that I'm trying to follow up with. I'm getting no response from the DMR. I didn't expect a response from the town because it's more of a DMR issue. However, the response on the West Bath side is that the town shellfish warden, Alexander, Doug Alexander, went out and he put markers down for the zone where the trawler can trawl from. And we went out yesterday and we have pictures of the dragging dredge marks inside the intertidal waters of the New Meadows from the trawler. And our question is how do we get Doug to go after this guy and tell him that he can't do that anymore? He's been told a couple of times already, and he continues to drag in that area. So it's a concern of ours, and I can leave it with you guys. I have copies, it's just pictures, and the second picture, or the last picture on this, if he disputes that he is doing it, he actually tried to do it at low tide, and he got stuck on the middle grounds.
Okay.
Oh,
So-
that's good.
So there is proof that he is dragging across the middle grounds. That's his boat, and he was there for 2.5 hours stuck.
Wow.
Is that a Doug Alexander issue or is
No.
that Joe?
It is Doug.
It is
It'll be
Doug.
done.
Okay.
There's been issues back and forth with Doug and Joel, and again, I try not to do with hearsay, because a lot of people down the point are kind of upset with the trawler in the river.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's all like hearsay, I heard this, I heard that, and I try to
This is
you know,
excellent.
strictly with the facts.
This
So-
is, thank you.
I did speak to Clint Thompson, the DMR warden.
Yep.
And he's
Marine
been out there
Patrol.
several times and talked to him, and he says, as far as I know, unless they see him over that line, he is legal, there's nothing the state can do. But in a meeting here a month or so ago, didn't somebody contact Jamie Crate
Yes.
about this? Our state rep?
I've been in contact with her as well.
And she's, was going to try to work with DMR to get it changed, so this can't be done.
I talked with DMR, or I should say email. I tried to do everything with email so nobody can go
Right.
back and say,
Yeah.
you didn't say that.
Yeah.
So in the email correspondence with DMR Cole up at the DMR in Booth Bay, she basically stated that they have nothing to do with the intertidal zone, that's the town of West Bath, that's the shellfish warden, period. They're not gonna do
No.
anything, that's from her, and that there is a copy of that email that was sent to the administrator. And that was 2 weeks ago, so I don't know if you guys got the copy or
No.
how that magic works within the town, but I did send it to his address only, I didn't send it, because I didn't have Doug's email address,
Yeah.
or Joel, I think Joel doesn't have email, or,
But as far as the Clint Thompson, he was just saying he was all legal as far as the state was concerned, as far as permits and everything else.
absolutely,
That's all I was saying.
yeah, he
It
is,
is the town's responsibility intertitle. I
correct,
was just saying that he checked him as far as the state goes.
correct,
And
as
he's
far as
legal.
the state goes, he's legal with all the permits, and the same thing, Cole did mention that. the problem, now I'm gonna go to the problem that I have with the state, that I'm having, and again, I've talked with Jay and kind of gone over that with the state as well, is back in 2013, up 2009 to 2013, the DMR is required to control eelgrass. Eelgrass is and was in the New Meadows River until last year when this guy started dredging. In 2013, they stopped any of the eelgrass monitoring, so since 2013 to
Right.
present, they have not done that monitoring. So now the DMR is coming back, because I sent that letter to them, which you guys have a copy, that the eelgrass probably wasn't there, it's probably green grass. My issue with that is, how can you issue a permit to dredge in the river without seeing if there's eelgrass in it, it was back there in 2013? And I don't get really good responses from them. I don't know if I'm asking the right questions, but what I'm asking the town is, what's the process and how can you guys help me? I mean, there's a lot of people down on the point that I'm in email correspondence with, and they're interested in what's happening and how we're doing things. I know there was a committee in the past, like, the Waterways Committee, I don't know if they were working on that, I wasn't part of it. But there needs to be something for the eelgrass. I used to see osprey down there. The shellfishing, the baby lobsters would be in the eelgrass, fish would be in the eelgrass, osprey. I have not seen an osprey in the river this year. Eagles are there, no osprey. No eelgrass or green grass, whatever the DMR wants to what they want to say. I've also been in contact, just so the town is aware, I have contacted the DEP, and I'm gonna contact the EPA as well to ask for what the jurisdiction is on eelgrass. I know the guy's out there dragging, and I know it's not his fault if he's dragging eelgrass and the state gave him permission. There's just these weird gray areas that nobody, how do we as a community go to say, we need to make something about eelgrass? If that's a protected area and we wanna make it protected, what can the town do, the DMR do, and the state do to make it a protected zone?
Very good question. We'll investigate.
Okay. And any information that I get, I will forward to the town. The town administrator is the best, or personal email addresses.
Town administrator.
In the interim, I'm monitoring the town
So you will
administrator
get-
network,
okay.
so then we can distribute it to
Okay.
everybody.
And again, I wanna make sure that I'm upfront, and I'm trying not to do hearsay, I'm trying to hear the things that I'm seeing, and I'm just concerned with those. The house has been there since 1934, my great-grandfather built it, I've been up here since 1960.
What did Jay say when you talked to her?
Email back and
Okay,
forth.
what did she email you?
She's confused on what the DMR's response was. Because the DMR's response in that letter, and I don't think I brought the letter, no I didn't. The DMR's response in the letter basically was, there was eelgrass there, but we really, I'm gonna paraphrase, we don't care that the eelgrass was there because there's quahogs there and this guy can drag for quahogs. That was kind of the gist of it, and she was confused, like, why would they even say that? And why does the state now, why in 2013 did they stop going after eelgrass and monitoring it? Is there a lack in the program funding? So she's looking on that side to see
Good.
why, why is it there?
Good.
And my concern for her was, it's gone now, so in the
Right.
letter that I sent, the first letter to the town and to the DMR is, my feeling is that they have a moral and legal obligation to replant the eelgrass that the dredge took out. That would be my feeling, and again, I start to put personal stuff in, and I don't like to do that, but it was there, you issued a permit, something has to happen.
If you would be so kind as to include, send all the emails so that I have them all in one file.
The stack, okay.
Your staff.
I will do that, and anything that comes through with the DEP or the EPA. I have not contacted the EPA yet, that's kind of the final. The DEP kind of, at this point, looks like they have jurisdiction over not intertidal, but in the rivers, as far as the process for eelgrass, removal of eelgrass, you have to have permits for that. It just, to me, it sounds like a tag game, everybody's saying like, well, it's their
Yeah.
response, and
Exactly.
That's the town's frustration.
I never liked tag when I was a kid.
Especially, backing up a little bit with the Harbors and Waterways Committee. I mean, the town has no authority in this at all by statute, but whoever does have stepping up.
And according to the things that I've learned, it's the DMR, and the DMR has a wide, there is no regulations from the legislature to control the DMR, so the DMR reads into, there's no specific guidelines. And I guess that's the thing with the town,
They
is
have rulemaking process.
they have rulemaking
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
but the legislature is the governing body that controls the DMR, that's why I contacted Jay.
Yes.
So how can the town, how can we as people in the town and the town go to the legislature and say, we need rules and regulations for this type of process?
Have you contacted Eloise Vitelli?
Jay contacted her.
Because she is on that committee, the MR committee.
Yeah, basically what Jay has done is she's contacted Eloise and the state senators, and she also sent her personal person in her, I don't know what they call them, secretaries or whatever, sent it all around to the legislature of the state of Maine.
Well, the odd thing is,
That memo that the town has.
if you go for an oyster lease, they come out and dive on the bottom to make sure you don't disturb any existing,
Eelgrass,
or anything,
yeah.
any shellfish, lobsters, whatever.
So the DMR should have,
Yes.
they should have something to say, because the oyster beds at the other end of the river, there was eelgrass down there too, so again, it's kind of like, it's a little bit hazy. Well, it could have been green grass. Well, could have, doesn't, it was eelgrass back in 2013. And if that's the only information that we have, eelgrass is what we have to go on. I can't take that it was green grass if no one went out and physically looked at it and said it's now green grass before they did the crop.
Could have been crabgrass.
Could have been,
What's
right.
that guy dredging for?
Cohogs.
Quahogs?
Yeah, large cohogs.
The big,
There's a big layer of them up there.
They are.
They used to be.
Yeah, they're out there about that big. I went out last night with my kayak and I went over you can see the dredge areas. It's about 1.5 feet deep and then it comes up to shallow, 1.5 feet where the dredge is now.
Oh, okay.
You put your hand in the mud down about 6 inches and you can get a 4-inch cohog.
The challenges.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen the permit, but again,
yeah.
my frustration is just the eelgrass, the environmental. I used to see the ospreys come in, lobster traps, when I was a kid, even last year, had a boat on a mooring, the lobster traps used to get wrapped in the prop as the boat would spin. There's no lobster traps out there now. Now, is that just coincidence that,
No,
again, that's my frustration.
right. And we'll join you in the frustration and see what else can be done.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
Sure.
much.
Good.
Must be my turn. Bob Vale, 557 Foster Point. I've lived here for 6 years. I also live in Cumberland Center. And so I share my time back and forth on a given day of the week. I'm on the Coastal Waters Commission in Cumberland. I spent 15 years on the planning board there. And as a matter of interest, I spent 15 years on the school board also. There's a fundamental shift in the use of our coastline going on right now. Most of us live in a residential neighborhood. We have neighbors that live in abutters who are residential neighborhoods. We may live across the street or we may abut commercial properties, and we have an expectation that if we don't own the land beside us, there's a chance that something will happen to it. They may put a subdivision in, any number of different things depending on the zoning. So what we're seeing now is a shift on the coastline from benign uses to active commercial uses. And I'm specifically referencing oyster farming, mussel farming, seaweed farming, and the such like. And it concerns me that there is not a review process, much like the planning board does when they review a subdivision or they review a commercial business, of what's going on. And again, there may be lack of authority here and lack of rulemaking ability. However, I believe it's incumbent upon the communities, and I've started this process in Cumberland, to sit down and review what is a commercial activity in a residential area. And if you look at the coastline of West Bath, it's predominantly residential. There's not much for commercial activity. I mean, you've got some here and there. So, if you live beside a gravel pit and they started up with a crusher at 4 o'clock in the morning, you might say, wait a second, or if there was a lot of dust, that sort of thing. If you live beside a restaurant, you expect to have some noise, but where I'm going with this is that I'm asking the town to step back and take a look at commercial activity in a residential zone. And that's what we're going to have happen. We've got a neighbor down the street there, Peter Francesco, that he has a small oyster operation. He operates it out of a canoe and a kayak. It's a pretty benign impact on the neighborhood. But at some point, he's going to go and ask for a 10-acre lease. And that 10-acre lease, when you say, if you follow the build out, if you put a house lot in a field and you've got approval for 20 house lots, you only see the one house. It doesn't really raise, it doesn't really raise your eye. But as you see the build out, you say, oh, geez, there's 20 houses here. There's an impact on us. Well, it could be good, it could be bad. So what I'm asking to do, looking to do, is to set some criteria. We may not be able to put any teeth in it today, but if we sit down and develop criteria, what are your hours of operation? What kind of mechanical equipment are you going to be using? How are you impacting a number of different issues? And we've asked, in Cumberland, we've asked our state legislatures to come to a meeting with us so that we can, one, question them on what our authority is or may not be. And then secondly, if there is no ability for the towns to act, then it's time for our legislatures, and I believe Shibiga is working on some of this also, that if enough communities say, you know what, okay, we want to have skin in the game. We don't want to allow commercial activity to occur in residential zones without some input, and I think that's a protection for all of us. It's certainly for property values. It just makes good sense to have something in place that the town can say, we've sat down and we feel that we want to be able to see what you're going to do. We want to know what the impacts are going to be to our neighborhoods.
That is a question that we have had many discussions on within the town, and the current information is that our authority is very limited, and the recourse would be legislative, I think.
Right, but if you as a community have stated your goals and concerns, DMR holds a public hearing on all these applications, and the ability is for the town to say, these do not meet our criteria. We have an objection based on the following findings of fact. They can act on that.
The town won't recognize us as a municipality. They'll only recognize
Criteria.
The way the current ruling is.
I understand that, and that's why I feel
recourse
that
is
we need to be ahead of the curve. We need to be proactive before we're littered with these
And
commercial activities.
That then becomes a much larger discussion about the value and non-value and the way in which value is assessed about how the waterfronts are used. And right now, the town is not in a position to get into that discussion. We're very happy to have people meet, talk, discuss, but right now, I think we're not really ready for that discussion as a town. It's my assessment, sitting here as a human being, not as a particular a legislator of the town right now. But it's going to be an ongoing concern, and there will be many, many discussions on the way.
Well, I would hope that the town would be proactive and not sit on our hands and wait till it becomes a problem. I would like to think that the town would start the conversation with the citizens and say, this is coming towards us. This is what we are faced with. Do we want to start the conversation? Yeah, I think it's
The
It's
conversation
easy for us to have the
started.
conversation now before the cattle leave the barn.
Maybe, Cumberland, Brunswick, Harpswell, Pittsburgh, maybe if several communities got together and with their respective legislators and, approach the Augusta that way.
I think there's value in
It
that.
makes no sense that the municipalities have absolutely no authority over looking over our own shore fronts. Nobody else seems to.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's, when I get out of the grocery store, I'm getting a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk, and I'm not buying a pack of clams or a bag of oysters. It's, so I've got some concerns about it.
Yeah.
I would like to move on, and continue with our stated agenda. And thank you for your concern, and I appreciate your
Thank you.
appreciate your presence, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, I'll send those emails.
Okay, that'd be awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Golly gee, committee and department reports. Nothing. Okay. We have information here about a proposed school funding.
Yes,
Would you stand and introduce yourself for the camera?
for the camera. On camera. I'm Mark Robinson. I am the town manager for the town of Fayette. And earlier I met you, Madeline, here, and I get to meet you, Kathleen.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. September 1st will mark the completion of my 14th year as Fayette's town manager. It is something that, as I think about where we were 14 years ago and where we are now, regarding the subject matter I'm about to discuss, I want to show you, at least for not all 14 years, but at least the last few. And I'm here because I'm asking for your help and your feedback and your input and hopefully your support financially to stop this. I'll show it to the camera in a minute. This represents 22-year history of education subsidy for Fayette.
Looks familiar.
Familiar?
I look from it, okay? Is there a common theme here?
Yeah.
Fayette is a community, currently the mill rate in Fayette is the cash, 1 mill is the cash equivalent of about $164,000.
Not bad.
In 2007, we received over $700,000 in school subsidy. Last year, we received 32.
You beat us.
We got more than you did. Oh, good, congratulations for us.
Everybody gets more than we do.
So, Fayette, West Bath, we are characterized by the state of Maine as minimal receivership districts. As such, that's a status that needs to change. The methodology that's used to determine what you and I receive, our respective communities receive for funding, needs to change. This is an unsustainable path that my community is on. We just went up $1.55 last week on our taxpayers. That's a significant hike for a small rural mid-central Maine town. Yet the trend is going to continue. And we're going to continue, the only subsidy we'll receive will be next year will be 40% of what we expended for special education services. So the initiative that's in your packet, and I made extra copies, I didn't know how many people would be here, is referred to as Raise the Floor. Simply, a couple extra copies here. This is a legislative initiative to create an opportunity to raise the floor for minimal receivership school districts. You're most welcome. Just by example, in my town, for next year, what the EPS formula, the Essential Programs and Services calculation, does to Fayette, it gives us 4% of our total defined EPS calculation for total allocation. We get 4% of that. That's what that next year was $50,000, last year was 32. In the event we were able to raise that floor to a flat 15%, that 4% changed to 15% would give us an additional, in Fayette's case, $209,000 in change. A mill is 164. We would save over a mill with this effort if it's successful. In West Bath's case, if it were successful for West Bath, based on the same scenario, you folks are receiving 7% of your EPS allocation. Raise that to 15%, and West Bath Public Schools receive an additional $270,323. I don't know how that translates in terms of a mill rate impact for your taxpayers, but it's $273,000. The basic theme is raising the middle receivership floor. This is done and being proposed to be done mutually exclusive from the EPS calculation. There's one thing that we've learned over the years in trying to advocate for more funding for Fayette is that the legislature wants no part of monkeying with the EPS calculation. They've tried it in the past, they've had difficulty with it, they don't want to mess with it. So this proposal does not do anything to the EPS calculation. We're not competing with our brothers and sisters in the surrounding school districts throughout the state. What we're advocating for is a new revenue line in the state's budget. That whatever the difference is, whatever gets you to 15% will come out of its own separate line. We do not want this initiative to go before the Education Committee. We want it to go before the Taxation Committee. All this has to do with is more revenue, and you use the EPS formula to determine whether you're 15% or below. You don't change the formula. You don't change what it produces. You use the data that it gives you to determine whether or not you're at 15% of your state allocation or below. Now, for the communities that are below 15% currently, such as West Bath, such as Fayette, this is an attractive opportunity to look at a risk versus reward scenario. For the communities that are receiving more than 15% right now, if this is successful and they see the downward trend over the years, let's say they're at 17%, they'll know if this thing passes, the lowest it can go is 15%. Okay, it doesn't get any lower. So even though they don't want to see their subsidy go down, at least they know there's a new flat percentage of funding that you'll receive. Right now, every year, it's floating. It's all over the map, depending on what your EPS, the factors, your valuation, your pupil count, your special education costs, is going up and down and floating. This provides stability, and it's a two-tiered system. Your one tier is your EPS calculation and what that produces, and then if you're below 15%, you get a second tier that's separately funded. It's something we have to go before the legislature on every year. It has nothing to do with the Education Committee, nothing to do with the EPS calculation. The only time the EPS calculation comes into play is to produce the data that you use to determine whether or not you're 15% or below. That is the basic concept. That is why I'm here tonight with the wholehearted support of my Board of Selectmen. And I've gone to a number of other different municipalities to raise support about this idea. In order for us to be successful, we need to work collaboratively. We need as many municipalities and their respective school districts to work collaboratively with this concept. And in order for us to be successful, we need to engage the services of a professional lobbyist. I'm not a professional lobbyist, I'm not a politician. But what I did do back in 2009 is help protect over $8 million of school subsidy for non-compliant school districts that were being faced with the threat of penalty by the Baldacci administration and the DOE at that time. We were successful to get a 1-year delay. That was extremely difficult because that fell upon the heels of the 2008 collapse. And all that $8 million was going to be distributed to all the, quote, compliant districts, many of whom didn't have to do anything to be compliant. The process that we engaged in back then was to engage Freddie Flaherty, one of the most prestigious firms in the state, their lobbyist, their top lobbyist, Dan Walker, to help us argue our position. And that subsequently led to some legislation changes, so that it made it easier for, in Fayette's case, a change in the AOS law that allowed us to join the AOS so we wouldn't be penalized in subsequent years. Of course, that has all changed, as you know, with the so many people disbanding their consolidated efforts. But we were successful with the process. My point is that this type of process works, and in order for us to be successful, we need as many municipalities, as many school districts to review this, consider the benefit of it for your individual respective municipalities and school districts, and decide if you're interested in helping us along. We've developed what I think is a fair method of asking towns to contribute toward the lobbying effort. We are committed to a goal of raising $50,000 by October 1st. At this point, we are about a little more than halfway there in collecting that money. Freddie would like to see at least 3/4 of the way before they consider submitting the bill. I think we'll get there, because I think this concept it's a simple concept for the legislature to understand, providing we can keep it out of the education committee. That's our main goal. It should be separately recognized as a separate source of funding that doesn't take funding away from the EPS formula, not in its inaugural year and subsequent years. It's separately funded. It's designed that way. We don't want to compete with EPS dollars, because then we'll have all of these other districts against us.
One question.
Yes.
The funds to make up to 15% from the low receivers like us would need to receive in order to fulfill the vision of this bill. Where's that money coming?
That is coming from the general fund. It will be competed every year.
So taxes, education taxes will be increasing.
From another source, not the $1 billion that's devoted to the statewide.
But they'd be increasing,
They'd
spending
be-
more
they'd be
money on
finding-
education.
They would be finding more money to spend on education, and the argument that supports that thought process, whether it's a separate fund or together, is it gets us closer to the overall 50%, 55% goal.
The one more comment, the EPS formula is, it's a calculation using population and valuation, and it goes through formula, and essentially it produces a number, tells what an individual community, how much the state requires it to spend on education versus how much the community can actually afford to pay. And the state makes up the difference in subsidy. Why don't you just lower the cost of education rather than raise taxes, throwing more money in there?
Well, in this particular case, and as I'm sure you experienced in the West Bath Public School District, your expenses to operate a municipal school, you're a municipal school like I'm a municipal school, continue to increase. Your special education costs continue to increase, and they'll increase at an exacerbated rate in the subsequent years. years. Ask any superintendent around in the larger districts, they're seeing it now, it's happening now, between the opioid crisis and the other substances that are influencing our young people and our children and developmental delayed kids. Those costs are gonna go up. We have no ability to slow that down, but we do have a legal obligation to provide a free public education for those children. So those costs aren't going to go down. And I don't know how, I wish I had the answer for you, but they continue to increase. And this, in our case, the state continues to decrease our funds. So we have no alternative but to raise our taxes locally for this purpose. And you're in the same boat as we are. You're right, the calculation does indeed determine what the state contribution will be, determine what your minimum contribution would be, but you're in the same situation as I am. The state contribution says X, and we have to raise an additional Y in order to meet our expenditure demands to operate the school. It's a unsustainable path that we're on, being in this position. The idea of raising it 15% gives some level of stability in knowing that's at least what we're going to get at a minimum. It's not a cure-all. This is not a fix. It's to help cushion the blow, because next year the cost will increase, and the year after that the cost will increase. I'd like to leave this spreadsheet with you. It shows you how all the other districts are treated. It's something that, as you look across all of the green-colored districts, these are folks that are below 15%. And then the blue are, the green are 0 to 10%, and then the blue are beyond 10 to 15%. There are a lot of districts. There are 116 municipalities that will benefit by this initiative. And then we get into the grays, and they're 15 and beyond. But the point of this is that we're not alone. There are 116 municipalities that will benefit from this initiative that are 15% or below. You're one of them, and I'm one of them. And I appreciate any consideration you give in joining the effort. In West Bath's case, what we tried to do is come up with a fair system to ask people to contribute. It'd be based on your pupil count. That's determined by it's in your EPS, your ED 279 fact sheet. And for this year, based on 235 pupils, at $5 a pupil, West Bath's contribution that's being asked would be $1,172.50. If we're successful, that would parlay to, as I said earlier, $270,000 and change. So I'll leave that with Carly.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, I'm going to switch this one out here. And there are a number of different letters that have gone out to the various towns. That is one of the latest from Freddie Flaherty. My job is to help spread the word and to answer any questions you may have about it. We'll be working with Freddie Flaherty. We'll be contacting a number of the other municipalities at this point, just to give you an overview of the municipalities that we have on board. We have Wells, Algonquin, Cape Elizabeth, Acton, Walt, Damascotta, Bristol, Bethel, Greenwood, Woodstock, Newry. At this point, we're waiting to hear back from Andover. We have Blue Hill, Hancock, and Lemoyne. So we're gathering steam here. We just started this about 2 months ago, so it's taking time. And the best way for us to get the word out is to come to selectmen meetings and tell you this is what we're trying to do, and let you know that it's worked before. It worked when we got delay of penalty. We saved it over $8 million. We're asking, the total ask this time is $15 million to make this work. And of course, the legislature will have to figure out, it's coming from the general fund, they're going to have to figure out a methodology of funding it every year, and every year we'll be back before them to protect it. That's the concept. It's a minimal risk, the potential of a great reward to get us and save our dollars and being able to cushion the blow for our taxpayers, because the expense, Peter, as much as I'd like to have a solution for you, it's gonna continue to go up. There's no way it's going to slow down, and that's the regrettable answer. I'm in the same boat. You know, my taxes, I just gave myself a tax increase of $500 for this year. Yeah. So that's the reality. I would love your consideration and support. Be happy to put you in touch with the folks at Freddie Flaherty if any of you would like to talk to them. We're trying to split duties and cover different towns at different times. Because I do have another job to do.
Is there a time frame on this?
October 1st is our goal for the fundraising, and the point that we're trying to do, we'd like to get a bill in is before October 1st. We'd like to get it in September. Yes, sir.
Do you have people lined up to sponsor the bill?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We do.
Have you talked to even our area?
I have not gone beyond that. I wanted to
Okay.
start with the municipal side. I want to start with our selectmen. You know, I feel your pain, I understand it, and, you know, one of the challenges that I have in doing this is if you look at that list, a lot of those green towns are the quote Gold Coast towns. And I can see legislators saying, well, why do we want to give those people more money? They're wealthy.
Rich coastal towns.
They're rich coastal towns, yeah.
West Bath.
Rich
Yeah.
coastal towns.
Yeah.
So the answer to that is every kid matters. Every kid matters. And you can't tell me there are people in West Bath that aren't having a hard time paying their tax bill. I know that there are.
That's for sure.
Okay, so if we can find a way to cushion that blow, we're helping ourselves out here.
Well, so far, in the last number of years, the state's never been able to come close to their mandated 55%.
Not at all. And this 15% gets them a little closer to saying, hey, we're a little closer, even though it's a separate pot of money. And that's the whole reason for the separate pot of money is to avoid any criticism of being in competition
I'm caught up in that.
with everybody else. That is the whole purpose. So when we're looking at this, you know, I can go to every minimal receiving district and they can probably produce a similar graphic.
Do you want to put that towards the camera?
Oh,
so
I'm
people-
sorry. There we go.
Somebody,
I've always been known to be camera shy. There you go.
Instead
This
of
thing's
that,
gotten a lot of mileage, I'm sorry, it's a little rough. I'm gonna turn it away from you, there you go.
Flip the corner there, so.
There we
And
go.
it might need to be over a little bit more
Oh,
because
Oh,
I
because.
kind of caught myself out.
Okay, Dana,
There you go.
is that Dana?
well, it's just so shocking that it's good that everybody gets a visual.
Yeah, schematic.
So our current mill rate that was decided last week is $18.55. We're certified at 100%. We anticipate a mill or less than a mill the subsequent year, based on the trends that we're seeing. We have no industry. Our waterfront properties, we have a lot of lakes and ponds. That's our industry.
Yeah.
You know, we have the old Fayette country store, and that's it for industry and commercial development. You have families that have lived there, multi-generational families, and they're having a tough time. So we're in the same boat, folks.
Yeah.
This is a risk, but it's a limited risk with the potential for some decent reward. That's really all I have to say. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to tell you what this is about. We can use your help if you're willing to give it. It's that simple.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. And good luck with the other issues. It sounds like other needs for advocacy.
It's been ongoing.
Yeah.
Good at it.
If you'd like, I can leave extras of these.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Carly.
Yeah. I'll be-
You guys are in good hands with her. I can tell you.
We know that.
All right. don't hesitate to, Carly knows how to reach me if you have any questions.
Bad signal.
I'd be happy to do that to you. There you go.
Thank you so much.
Take care, you're welcome.
Speaking of how awesome Carly is. Carly is wonderful. Business item 2. The Maine Town County Clerk Association nomination. Carly has been asked to serve as a member of the executive board, but she would need our blessing to do this because this would require some time during her office hours. So there's correspondence in your packet.
I have no objection at all. Carol wants to serve on that committee. She's the best person to serve on.
Have they given you, Carly, any indication how much time away, or is
It's-
it very minimal?
Yeah, it's the first Wednesday of the month
Okay.
for 2 hours plus travel time, so it'll amount to about 3 hours. And they are reimbursing mileage, so it won't cost the town a penny except for my time being there.
We can let people know that if they want to do their business while you're there, that they should avoid the first Wednesday.
Exactly.
I don't do any town business on the first Wednesday.
It's not a very popular day. But I will be going to Augusta once a month if anyone needs me up for anything up there, so
Yeah, we can bring them up.
exactly what we want.
Go out to lunch.
Notes for caffeine, yeah.
Call that building municipal relationships.
Right.
Right. Do we need a motion on that, or should we just say amen, go to it?
Oh, let's have a motion.
All right? Let's have one.
I move that Carly receive the Board of Selectmen's blessing in her new position appointment as a member of that executive committee.
I second that motion.
All those in favor? Awesome.
Congratulations.
This is a good thing both for Carly and an honor for the town. And
Shame that you have to go to Augusta, but
I'm getting a latte out of this.
I think when you were support Kathleen.
Okay, on to the next thing, appointments. On the list of appointments, we have two members to be appointed to the Board of Assessment Review. One is Lisa Atkins, who's currently an alternate member, and Antoinette Tate would be proposed for a new member.
So Lisa wants to be moved up to be a regular member,
Yes,
and then Antoinette would be a alternate now?
I
No,
believe
they would both be regular.
both with
Both
regular,
regular?
okay,
Okay.
thank you, Carly. This is why she deserves this
And-
honor.
Mrs. Tate is here if you
Oh,
have any
Oh, hi.
questions for her.
Excellent, wonderful. You have had experience in this endeavor, I
And
understand?
I've never done like actual assessing, but I have over 30 years' experience in the mortgage industry. I was an escrow officer for years and years, so I've looked at appraisals, I've done everything from a short stint at mortgage origination. I currently work for Fannie Mae, and I've already checked with them to make sure that there's no conflict of interest or anything like that. I'm actually taking an early exit program from them in October and have confirmed that it doesn't violate anything with that. But so yeah, I've worked in the mortgage industry for a very long time, so I'm pretty familiar with how the tax process works, appeal processes work, and that kind of thing.
Excellent,
Good, good,
excellent.
thank you.
Sure.
I move that we appoint both these people, both Lisa Atkins and Antoinette Tate, to the Board of Assessment Review.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome
Welcome.
aboard.
Thank you.
Good.
This leaves us with 2 openings for alternate members, if anyone in the community is still interested.
Would you post that? And business item 4, comprehensive plan committee. Peter, would you just give us an update on what this is doing in our packet this time, and what are we thinking about doing about it?
Well, comprehensive plan committee, the chairman happens to be with us tonight, met last week for the first get-together meeting, sort of a get-organized meeting. And Carly, at the same time, was kind enough to look up their website and gave us an email link with all the information that is on the state planning office's website, which is necessary to go through to put together a comprehensive plan endeavor. Thank you very much. And last time around, comprehensive plan needs to be updated in theory every 10 years. And last time around, we operated as a task force. I believe I was a selectman at the time. Somebody was at the time. And because the law says that the selectman can't serve on any committees. And so we changed it to a task force. We did that to a few committees. In looking over going through the website, State Planning Office website, it's very clear that they're looking for a committee to go over the comprehensive plan. I think a task force, to call it a task force, it probably meets the letter of the law. I don't think it meets the spirit of the law. And a comprehensive plan, having it updated and having it be consistent, which is the magic word of the state, having it be consistent with state guidelines, doesn't open up the opportunity for grants and all this stuff, but it doesn't shut the door, which if we're not consistent, the door gets shut.
Right.
So I personally don't want to take any chances. I don't see any need to go through the comprehensive plan and anything but a committee. I don't need to serve on the committee, I can serve next to it. It doesn't matter. You know, I don't have a vote, but.
Right, if you were to serve as the liaison from the board to
Yeah,
the
I could
committee,
do that.
that would be
That would make
sufficient.
sense, yeah.
I would prefer that, because I think when we play these little word games, it gets us in trouble. So I think we need to be clear and transparent, and I think we give the liaison a much better fit.
I thought about it quite a bit over the weekend, and we did the comprehensive plan over several years, about 15 years ago, and the world has a lot less of a sense of humor than it did 15 years ago, so, you know.
Word salad.
I wouldn't want the town to get tripped up because of something stupid like that.
And I'm only saying that because I got myself in a little hot water recently, so.
And
Okay.
David, is that agreeable with you?
I don't see a problem, we check with the rest of the committee, but I don't see a problem.
Okay.
Does that leave us with a full committee?
Yeah.
All right, so we have a full committee. We
Uh,
have a liaison.
We have 4 members.
We'd be a committee of 4, so it's not full.
So we
Oh,
have
so we
one
would
opening
need one
still.
more person to serve.
If, yeah, we will go forward with 4, we just have 3 people there for the,
Right.
So can we put that on the website with the others?
Is it still open, or?
I took them down just because with the nomination papers and
Yeah.
the administrator position, I was kind of easing off, so it wasn't overwhelming, but once the administrator position is down,
Yeah.
would that be acceptable to wait until September 4th and then,
That's right around the corner.
yeah, just a couple weeks?
and just to add to that, makes sense because if this Phil Carey that I talked to is right, we can wait for state
Until-
information anyhow in November.
Okay, so there's no hurry.
We can't do too
We're
much
kind of,
until,
Yeah,
stalled anyhow.
he also told me that
and abatement season is over for the BAR, so.
due to funding cuts and staff cuts and converging all these departments together, they will not go out to any meetings. They have no one available to come to one of our meetings. They won't do it, they can't do it.
Wow.
So you can ride up to Augusta with me.
You go to lunch?
I've already, my ticket's already paid, so.
See, they,
We can meet
I guess it's the
after
state planning
that.
office.
When you call.
They come up, yeah.
I guess it's the state planning office that they consolidated
Oh,
all
they-
this stuff.
They shredded,
This other guy that,
McAllister?
that I talked to, McCaskill, he works for the, state fire marshal's office.
well, they sent me to somebody else first, and then she had this Phil call me.
Yeah.
It was, didn't even make sense what they sent me, but that's all right. The first time they gave me was disconnected,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
so it's a communication gap up there apparently too. But they will not have him available to come down here and discuss what the state requires for the new comp
Yeah.
plan. But he said he would get back to me sometime this week. When he does, I'll email the town as well as committee members to know what they say.
And it's good that we actually touch base with him again, too.
Yes.
Yes. Well, that will make your jobs very interesting. Do we need to take any further action, or have we appointed Peter? Do we need to disappoint him?
No.
Because
We don't want to disappoint
Disappointed.
Peter. Okay, so you're our official liaison, and thank you. And you'll put that up when the other one comes down so that we don't have a too busy
Okay.
website. Excellent. All right. Birch Point Road, business item 5. Well, the problem is, of course, that Birch Point Road is too close to the rising ocean. So there's some undermining that's been going on with, particularly on the astronomical high tides and the storm surges. So we went down and looked at it, and yep, it's being undermined. And we had Bob Prue with us looking at that, and you have in your packets a recommendation for how this might be handled going forward. And this is a budgetary concern, of course.
Now that got done, whether it was done thoroughly, properly or not, I don't know. But when, sometime between the time Mr. Haggett built his house and the time they started phase 1 down there of the Birch Point Road rebuild, which, Jesus.
phase 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that would bring us back, probably 15 years. Yeah. So, that part of the road was, they did something to it back then. I don't know if they did what Bob Prue was proposing or not.
What is this financial cost?
It says 6,000 to 7,000, but my concern is
No,
the
that's,
second page.
That's just for the engineering.
Okay, because the second page is saying that we need to obtain title right or interest in the property.
Right, beyond the right of way,
So that's,
for construction and maintenance easement, it says.
Yeah.
So,
I think we have to talk to our town attorney before we can make any.
yeah, I don't think we will we should take action on this tonight, but this is an information piece.
Yeah.
That sounds complex.
I have learned over the last couple of years that anytime you do something with a road,
It's
it's
complex.
way more complex than
What
it
was-
should.
Did you give a
seem
ballpark estimate?
He did not give us an estimate like dream condition, but the cost of the surveying and engineering service would be 6,000 to 7,000.
Not a survivor.
And of course, it
Mhm.
involves, another Sabino. It involves permits from the DEP and our
Army
Corps
Corps.
of Engineers and,
And NRPA permit and a USACE permit.
Is this once again not considered an emergency repair?
This is not an emergency at this point. Who knows what's gonna happen on the next storm tide, but
Is this just on the cove by, in front of, Haggett's?
Yeah.
there are two spots on either side of his dock where you can see that the road is being undermined. And on this place just beyond, coming from our direction, just beyond, where his dock is, you can see the road is sloping.
So that, yet they would not consider this an emergency situation?
I don't believe it's an emergency. Yet.
I think,
You're reaching for
I
that
think-
golden key, aren't you?
engineer, Mr. Prue, I think he explained to the people who were at that meeting, from Birch Point people, that, just to begin the project is a several year process.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's not like they expect bulldozers to show up next week.
No, they're not expecting that, but it is something that we need to put into the
Well, it all
long-range hopper.
depends too, if we get hurricane season and we get high tides and strong winds, we could have an emergency.
We could have an emergency.
So-
And are you telling me that an emergency would be the best case scenario?
For
Well,
the,
you're
so
gonna dream up, though.
for the,
I am not in the process of producing weather, but.
for the time being, what we need to decide, right off in the next meeting or two, is whether we want to have the engineering done or not.
Right, right,
The problem being there, you gotta find the funds,
right. It may have to wait till the next budget
It
season.
may, yeah.
cause that,
I don't know how tight we cut the road budget this year.
I think it's pretty tight.
I think it is too.
I think
well,
it's.
there's other repairs to Birch Point Road, as well as Mountain Road and Savannah Road, we've already budgeted for.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have those commitments.
So we may,
already.
we may have to wait till next year.
Yeah. Kind of what I thought, but
Where's
we,
the understanding that this may become an
with
emergency?
the understanding that with the right astronomical tide and the right, storm surge, we could be in for an emergency. But it's clearly something that definitely needs to be addressed.
How's that?
Well, to rate the ocean water level rising.
It is.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal, the difference in the way that the tide is. Amazing. So that's just for our interest and edification.
Okay.
Under other, housekeeping thing, when I was in this morning for my first Board of Selectmen office hours, I was presented with a vacation request from our town clerk with the startling information that normally those are signed by the town administrator. So I did make an executive decision and signed, and to give permission for Carly to have Friday off. So I just wanted you to know that, and to ask going forward, should I just simply assume that authority while I'm in the office? I have joked that once I became chair, the power might go to my head, but I really,
Should have seen your face.
I think I don't have any objection, and I don't think Kathleen does, but to keep, you never know about inquiring minds. So I think in the course of your day-to-day oversight, for a short period of time, hopefully, just keep a list of whatever you did and we'll publicly say, Madeline will say, this is what I've done.
okay,
If you guys have any objection,
okay,
I think,
As the chair, that's,
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's kind of important that we have to have somebody making sure that the town's open and that both girls don't get the same day off.
Right.
So,
We
if you're
try to make
aware.
sure that doesn't happen.
Now, I was gonna say, when we were talking about this last week, that me for anything, call on me, but I didn't say anything because I'm thinking, somebody's gotta be the person designated in charge, somebody's gotta be central
Yeah,
planning here, so I didn't say anything, but if you need help with anything, do call me.
yes, I will, thank you, thank you. I also asked, the fire chief was in, and I asked him to be in touch with me if there is any kind of newsworthy thing that needs to happen. Just so there's somebody to report to and circulate information. I also took the opportunity to tell Julie to apply for a office equipment grant because she's been having some ergonomic issues, and she'd like to see if she can get one of those lifting up computer desks.
Oh, the desk, yeah, I
Yeah.
think those are pretty neat.
And
Yeah.
they have a new one that has a larger workspace, so she
Yeah.
could actually get her paperwork out. So I thought that that was a reasonable request. So she's gonna go ahead and do that. Let's see. The other note to make is that Juanita Wilson Hennessy has resigned as the chair of the Board of Assessment Review, and her letter of resignation is in your packet. Is there other stuff that we need to discuss?
I don't think so.
And I had executive session listed as a potential item, because at some point, perhaps before we start interviewing, we should figure out what we want our next town administrator to do and to kind of come up with a potential job description. Hard to know who to hire, we don't know what we want them to do. But perhaps we can put that on the agenda for next meeting.
Okay, and, in the same discussion, probably we should look at, the, contract.
Right.
Have you chosen your hiring committee?
I guess it's those three,
And the fire chief.
and the fire chief,
Okay.
Yeah.
like last time.
Have a little outside look at it, good?
Has anybody asked John to do that?
I haven't. Adam probably
Don't
did.
know. I thought Adam was going to, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if he did,
Then I'll check with him.
yeah, we did it last time, because the fire chief has a lot of interaction with the town administrator.
He also looks at things a little different than the board does,
Yeah,
Right,
different point of view.
different kind of perspective.
because it was a little bit different landscape, what, 4 years ago, town versus the fire department anyway, so.
It was a very different landscape on lots of scores.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting what we come up with. So before next meeting, I'll find the job description that we had before and the old contract, and we'll put that on the agenda as an executive committee. Does that work?
all right.
And if you guys wanna start earlier or something, let me know, and I'll make myself available.
Okay. That's good. Anything else?
I don't have anything else. Oh, yeah, one other thing.
Okay.
Where you're, in your capacity is, whatever your capacity is. Do you want me to come in, Wednesday and sign the warrant?
I'll be in on Wednesday. Probably, if you could plan on, I'm looking for August, if you could come in on the 29th
Of July,
of August.
August?
Because I'll need to be out of town on that Wednesday.
Okay,
That would be helpful.
okay.
Otherwise, there's no,
And I'm on vacation that week, I'm home, if you need anything.
okay, wonderful.
And, let's see. Let me see here, wait a minute. You're aware of that, right?
Yes, yes,
And,
and we have the warrant for that.
okay. Okay.
Yep.
And that's already signed,
Yes,
okay.
right on the top.
Well, that was that decent amount of money that,
Yes,
okay. Thank you.
all right. Are we ready to adjourn?
I'm gonna,
Then let's say so.
I move that we adjourn at 6:42.
I'll second the motion. And we are all in favor.